Hi, I'm Krista Hollingsworth, and welcome to the Consilian Report. Today, I'm talking with Natalie Sherod of Kavanack. Natalie is an insurance specialist, especially when it comes to cyber liability insurance. Natalie's going to be talking to us today about what's going on in the market. What do you need to do in order to qualify? It's not as easy as it used to be, and why you should get started early. I think you're really going to find today's interview informative. Oh, and please, if you like it, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Hi, Natalie.
Hi, Krista. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank
I'm,
you.
I am so glad that you can join me today because I am excited to talk about what's happening in the cybersecurity insurance market. A lot of our customers, clients, friends are getting requests from their insurance providers for upgrading their security, and it seems to be coming out of nowhere. So I thought we could talk about the market. You are an expert when it comes to cyber liability insurance. So this is great timing. So again, thanks so much for joining.
I'm glad somebody's excited to talk about insurance. So,
I'm always excited to talk about
yeah,
cyber insurance for
yeah.
sure.
Okay. I
So
won't bore you with the other stuff.
so what's going on in the market, Natalie?
Yeah, it's crazy. I'll be honest with you. We spoke about a year ago, and that I would say last March is really when we started to see the market for cyber insurance shift. And just, going back a bit, for the last, 10 years or so, cyber insurance has been very inexpensive. So, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, you could be a company that's making 5 million in revenue and you maybe had to answer 4 questions and you get $1 million of coverage for $2,500. And with that coverage, not only are cyber insurance policies paying losses that you owe to other people, damages, but also a lot of costs associated with finding out what happened. So with forensics, with breach coaches, with ransomware, and we saw such an increase in claims that that rate was no longer sustainable. So the market has really turned not only in pricing, we've seen that increase significantly, but also in underwriting. So that's why you're seeing the need for so much more information before a renewal will even be quoted.
So, can we talk a little bit about the request for information? I know we've talked in the past about these controls.
Mhm.
What what will give our friends the best chance for either renewing or getting their cyber liability insurance?
Yeah, well, first start early, because each company, and there's, I would say 15 different companies right now that are still aggressive in the marketplace, offering really great terms. They each have different applications. So that's the first problem is you get an application that looks like a foreign language to most people. Then you get it to your IT person who can kind of decipher. But they even use different terms on their applications. But I would say that the things that we're seeing consistently across the board is that all remote users need to have multi-factor authentication
Mhm.
depending on the type of industry. So let's say healthcare or law, where you have a lot of private data, they might also want to see multi-factor authentication for privileged users. So multi-factor, huge. Endpoint detection. And again, I'm not the expert like you guys are, but from my understanding, think of it as Norton anti software on steroids, where instead of just doing running a scan when you turn on or off your computer, it's consistently running looking for vulnerabilities. Encryption of data. So if you have personal private data, is it encrypted while at rest in your system on your network? Is it encrypted while you're emailing it? And are the backups encrypted? So that's going to be a huge part. And then backups. How often are you backing up your system? Where are you backing up your system? And
Mhm.
that extends to not only your network, but your cloud network. And that's
Sure.
challenging, right? A lot of companies are using managed service providers or cloud networks,
Yeah.
and you do need to know how often they're backing them up.
And a lot of this requires planning. So for, if you have MFA and maybe your insurance provider saying, well, you also need it for your VPN access. So, that does take time. It takes planning to implement that. It takes planning for we call it XDR, for the advanced endpoint security. And even for your backups, what's required to actually do that correctly, it's something called a business impact analysis, or BIA, that will help you to determine what systems should be backed up first in case there's a disaster, to help with your disaster recovery planning. So it does take a lot of planning. I agree with you that people need to start early, because if you only have 30 days, you might not get everything done in 30 days,
And
depending.
it's what's
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't think of it in terms of just your cyber renewal, because you're right. It's going to take longer than that, to add insult to injury, because we're seeing so many either reductions in coverage or pricing increases, or
Mhm.
even just requests for new coverage. Cyber insurance underwriters are overwhelmed, and
Mm.
so they used to be able to turn around a quote in a day or two, and
Mhm.
now it could take 15, 20 days to get that quote back. And if you only started at 30 days, you've got, 5, 10 days to get that in place. And we used to be in a spot where they would say, okay, you don't have MFA, but you're going to put it in place. So we'll put the policy in place. We'll check back in 60 days.
Right.
That is no longer happening. I mean, we're seeing it even on clients that have been with this company. So they have renewed with them for 3 years, and
Yeah.
there's no leeway,
Yeah.
because it's just take it or leave it.
So if an organization is making this kind of investment, right, investment of materials and time and treasure, um, what should they be looking for to make sure that they're getting their money's worth with regards to the policy itself? I know in the past we've talked about look for some of the hidden gotchas. I thought it would be a good idea to talk about that. What should they be looking for?
Yeah, the first is limits and sublimits. And so if you look at a cyber policy, there's going to be 20 different insuring agreements. And so the first part is understanding what your need is. If you're a company that holds or collects a lot of personal data, you're going to want to make sure that the privacy liability limit is adequate, and keeping in mind that the defense costs are not in excess of your limit. So that's something to take a look at for a company that maybe doesn't have as much, but their concern is more on the cyber crime, making sure that those limits are adequate. So starting with the limits, and then I would really look at the warranties. So yes, the coverage is there, but what do we have to do? A lot of them will stipulate when you have to notify the carrier. So usually it's within 30 days of a control group knowing, and then knowing what that control group is. So it can be a complicated policy. So I would say sitting down with the broker and just really understanding what do we need to do in the event that a claim does occur. What are our limits, so that we know, if we need to look for excess, or just plan for that outside of that.
Sure.
I think those are really important to take a look at.
So you really need to work with someone who is knowledgeable about even what your business is, and then some of the other compliance issues that you may have that may come into play with the insurance, with the type of insurance that you're getting.
Yeah, unfortunately, no cyber policies are created equal. And
Yeah.
so, and the great thing about cyber policies is they have a ton of advantages to them. I mean, we talked about these different coverages: that security, liability, business interruption. So if your business cannot operate because of a cyber attack, and you lose, let's say you're a manufacturer and you lose a week of production,
Mm.
most good policies are going to have that. There are also others that will have dependent business interruption. So if your supplier goes down, there could be some coverage for that. Important for a manufacturer, maybe not important for an attorney. So there are just some things to look at, in terms of what your desire and what your need for the policy is.
That's great. So, Natalie, if someone wants to contact you to learn more, maybe have you help them with their cyber liability insurance, how can they get a hold of you?
Absolutely. Definitely contact me. My email is nsherod@cavanac.com. I seriously love talking about this stuff, so I'm always happy to help. Just kind of give you an idea of maybe where there could be some either redundancies or lack of coverage. And yeah, always happy to do that.
Thank you so much, and thanks for
Thank,
joining me.
thank you.